Son of a bitch.
For today's cup of coffee, Mercury is going out of retrograde.
She's got me fucked up twice now.
And we did the whole thing. And we had done good. And I had actually enunciated correctly. And looked down, and the microphone was off. And it's like,
Son
well,
of a bitch.
Shit.
This is why we need to, like, hook up microphones to the computer instead of just relying on this little dinky.
Well, that's a possibility. I actually looked for some other setup than this little dinky thingy. So, which is actually a very appropriate, and it's not a bad microphone.
2 blue snowballs, and that's it. That's all we need.
Well, that's true. The alien
and
babies.
we got the alien babies.
Yeah.
I need a cable for my alien baby, but...
Hey, wonder if we could hook those alien babies into the mixing board.
Does it take USB?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
So we'll have to do that over the weekend. Anyhow, take 2 on this. And within this, there's a hell of a lot of references. So definitely check the links in the description box, because I'm not going to go. That one had like 2.5 pages of references. So to let you know that we're not just pulling this out of our asses. And also to let you know, now from history.com, some of these links I may or may not put in there, that the internet was started by the United States government as a weapon during the Cold War. Now think about that.
It's interesting.
Then you've got to realize which agency of the government it was that did that, and that was DARPA, which is Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. And I'd say the people that watch our channel, they already know who DARPA is.
Maybe they didn't. You don't know.
Well, that could be. We could have new people. And on the Wikipedia article, they had quoted The Economist and said that they called DARPA the agency that has shaped the modern world, and pointed out that Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine sits alongside weather satellites, GPS, drones, stealth technology, voice interfaces, the personal computer, and the internet on the list of innovations for which DARPA can claim at least partial credit.
Partial credit, not entire credit.
No, but... So that brings us back again, and I hope I've got my papers in order, maybe, and maybe not.
Maybe.
And what we're going to be discussing today is...
If you know that reference, you know.
That as far as too much screen time can damage the brain. It actually does damage the brain. It's not a question.
My brain's hurting right now.
Yeah. And that this was something that I had searched for a long time. I knew it, instinctively, but I did need the sources to present to people, not just sitting there going, oh, she's just making this shit up. And the reference that I have is from Josh McDowell, CRU Ministry. And actually, they're quoting from a Psychology Today article by Victoria L. Dunckley, MD, entitled Gray Matters, Too Much Screen Time Damages the Brain. And
lovely.
Yeah. Quote from Lin and Zhu et al. 2012, quote, taken together, studies show internet addiction is associated with structural and functional changes in brain regions involving emotional processing, executive attention, decision making, and cognitive control.
Oof. That's a big oof.
And so people, will do this thing about, it's an internet, it's not drugs, it's not alcohol. And so we're going to discuss what is addiction and the role of denial in addiction.
Addiction is addiction.
It is. It doesn't matter exactly what the addiction is. It all works the same.
Yeah.
And this is from Psychology Today by...
Strange Diction, isn't it?
Yeah. Shahram Heshmat, PhD, and this was posted November 13th of 2018. Addicts are notoriously prone to denial, and denial can be defined as selective ignoring of information. Denial is a form of motivated belief or self-deception that detaches an individual from reality.
See, I know I'm addicted to the internet, but, what else am I supposed to do? That's the only social interaction that I have.
I understand. And psychological processes such as distraction, forgetfulness, and repression may serve as a variation of denial.
What is repression?
Repression is to ignore that something exists. Like if somebody is angry and they don't want to admit that they're angry, and they will stuff that emotion. So that's, as far as repression.
Okay.
I'm wondering if it couldn't also do as far as kids go through different developmental phases according to age and stuff like that, and I'm wondering if it can't repress that type of maturity, like emotional maturity.
Oh, it can.
I would say that it could. And, these processes may or may not be on a conscious level. Denial is basically a defense mechanism, and lacking the capability to cope with the negative states, they can erect powerful defenses in a desperate effort to avoid feeling them. And keeping the unacceptable feelings out of awareness can result in the development of a false self. And that's where we were talking about the avatars. That a lot of people are not, they're afraid of how others are going to view them.
Like V-Roid and, what other play? Like any game that you make a character or you wear a skin for, your game.
Right.
Multiplayer.
And the price for this protection is the inability to seek out help in denial. Now, also in today's world, because that you have that condition of anonymity on the internet, people do say hurtful, hateful things.
Oh, yeah, and they think that they can get away with it.
Oh, yeah. And denial protects a person against the negative experience by denying the reality of one's situation. When doing so would cause psychological pain and distress. And there's also evidence suggesting that addicts lack the knowledge about the negative consequences, not out of denial, but because of impairment in insight and self-awareness. Now, my God, we've got that evidenced all over the world right now. Addicts can also fail to care about the future. Future consequences are not weighed in comparison with present benefits. Again, with the frontal lobe thing, if I do this, this can happen. Anxiety associated with thinking about consequences may in some circumstances lead addicts to repress or deny news about their addictions. Denial alleviates anxiety. And since individuals use denial to protect themselves from psychological pain, it's important that they be given new tools for coping effectively with that pain. Now, back to this other, and this lady, she was talking about what kids are not addicted per se. Addiction aside, a much broader concern that begs awareness is the risk that screen time is creating subtle damage even in children with regular exposure, considering that the average child clocks in more than 7 hours a day. Now, that's a tremendous amount of time, and, little kids, I have seen people hand
iPads, phones,
tiny
tablets.
kids.
Yeah.
And what are they doing? Says that many of the children this lady sees suffer from sensory overload.
Yeah, it very much is sensory overload.
Again, like there is a school of thought that stacking immunizations can overwhelm a kid's immune system, which is not developed yet. There's a school of thought.
Yeah.
I know as a parent, personally, if I had known then what I know now, I would have made better choices. I would have made different choices. And there's a lot of parents that, kick themselves. Being a parent means perpetual, remorse.
Yeah. Not anti-vax.
Yeah, really. But they suffer from sensory overload, lack of restorative sleep, and a hyper-aroused nervous system, regardless of whatever diagnosis. So it makes you wonder if a lot of these kids are being, diagnosed as, being on the autism spectrum or having ADHD. Could it be because of what's going on with internet and, computers? She calls this electronic screen syndrome, which is a good term. And the children have a tendency to be impulsive, moody, and can't pay attention. So what happens? These kids
got ADHD too.
Those kids. Well, see, mine is homegrown because we didn't have the computers.
Nothing like homegrown ADHD.
Well, what happens when you've got kids that have some of these symptoms? They take them and they put them on some kind of medication. And they berate them.
Yes.
So, brain scan research findings in screen addiction, gray matter atrophy. Multiple studies have shown atrophy, which is a shrinkage or loss of tissue volume in gray matter areas where processing occurs in internet and gaming addiction. Areas affected include the important frontal lobe. The first time we did this, I did not, wobble the words. Which governs executive functions such as planning, prioritizing, organizing, and impulse control, such as getting stuff done. Volume loss was also seen in the striatum, which is involved in reward pathways and the suppression of socially unacceptable impulses. A finding of particular concern was damage to an area known as the insula, which is involved in our capacity to develop empathy and compassion for others, and our ability to integrate physical signals with emotion. So, is this as far as rudeness and callousness and apathy, is it because of brain damage?
Could be.
And aside from the obvious link to violent behavior, these skills dictate the depth and quality of personal relationships. And we were discussing, the ability to form relationships in the real world versus the cyber world.
Yeah.
And that people seem to be challenged, and recent world events are making that worse.
Oh, yeah.
Lots
definitely. A good
worse.
portion of my... You say that we're black-pilled. I don't know if we're necessarily black-pilled. It's just we see the world, as it is.
Yes.
We take it as it goes, but we're not...
Because that the brain is not doing what it should be doing.
And do I have to explain the clip again, since we had to cut that out?
Yeah, well, that's up to you if you want to. It was just an example of nihilism.
Yeah, my generation. So basically the clip, I took a roundabout way of explaining it in the previous one, but basically it was this woman in a grocery store. This is from Good Girls. I've never watched the show, I just know this clip. And robber told her to get on the ground. She's like, I'm not going to do that. They always empty the drawers when the morning shift changes. And he said he checked and she was right. And he told her to give him her purse. She said she's not going to do that because she's going to... the manager already pressed the... What the fuck is it?
The panic call button.
Yeah, the panic button, and she's going to stall, and by the time he gets the purse, police will already arrived. He gives her a strange look, like bewilderment. He's like, do you want to die? She looks at him with a blank stare. She's like, kinda. That's a good portion of my generation,
right,
and how we think. We honestly don't care what happens to us.
Right, and that apathy, that is not normal. And another finding of the studies compromised white matter integrity. Research has also demonstrated loss of integrity in the brain's white matter. Spotty white matter translates into loss of communication within the brain, including connections to and from various lobes of the same hemisphere, links between the right and left hemispheres, and paths between higher cognitive and lower emotional and survival centers. White matter also connects networks from the brain to the body and vice versa. Interrupted connections may slow down signals or shortcut them or cause them to be erratic. So in other words, the brain is not able to communicate properly with itself.
Yep.
And that's going to cause everything else to go haywire.
Yeah, pretty much.
Then there is reduced cortical thickness. Hung and colleagues found reduced cortical, which is the outermost part of the brain, thickness in internet-addicted teen boys, and Ewan et al. Found reduced cortical thickness in the frontal lobe of online gaming addicts, which included late adolescent males and females, correlated with an impairment of a cognitive task. There was also impaired cognitive functioning. Imaging studies have found less efficient information processing and reduced impulse inhibition, increased sensitivity to rewards, and insensitivity to loss. So that makes, does that make someone appear hedonistic possibly, or narcissistic possibly?
Yeah.
An abnormal spontaneous brain activity associated with poor task performance. There's also cravings and impaired dopamine function. Dopamine is a huge thing within the brain. Mm-hmm. Research on video games have shown dopamine, which is implicated in reward processing and addiction, is released during gaming, and that craving for or urges for gaming produces brain changes that are similar to drug cravings. Other findings on internet addiction include reduced numbers of dopamine receptors and transporters. In short, I've lost my place. In short, excessive screen time appears to impair brain structure and function. Much of the damage occurs in the brain's frontal lobe that undergoes massive changes from puberty until the mid-20s. Frontal lobe development, in turn, largely determines success in every area of life, from sense of well-being to academic or career success and to relationship skills. Then from article from the Brain Institute is frontal lobe damage. Now this is more directed towards somebody who have had like a physical injury or something, but it does not matter how the injury occurred. If the injury to the same area, is there, you're going to have the same or very similar symptoms.
Yeah.
And the frontal lobe is part of the brain that controls cognitive skills of the body. These cognitive skills include the emotions, memory, problem-solving skills, judgment, language, and sexual behavior. A frontal lobe brain injury can cause a huge change in a person's emotional control, and aggressive behavior is usually manifested. Now you think about all this rioting and bullshit that's been going on. These people have got phones. We've seen them with the phones because they record the illegal behavior.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there going, that's a dumbass thing.
Did I tell you that what one of my friends sent me? It's when he was in school, which was not that, like, a couple years ago. One of their teachers was a pedophile.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. And they set up a decoy of this 13-year-old girl asking for sex on the corner or whatever. And they found him because he was about to take her up on that offer. Mm-mm. They found him and they curb stomped his ass.
Yeah.
Rightfully so, and they recorded it.
Yeah.
And spread it everywhere. And you can literally hear them. This is what you get for being a fucking pedophile and going after kids.
Mm-mm. Yes.
And they recorded it, and it was on the news, local news, but it was
right.
news.
Were they underage kids?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Because juveniles can get by with some of those things that adults cannot.
They were in school, but they had every right to do that.
Well, We are not encouraging someone to do violent and or illegal behavior.
Oh, I do.
Disclaimer. No.
I support that towards pedophiles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They deserve it. They absolutely deserve.
Again, a frontal lobe brain injury can cause a huge change in the person's emotional control.
Oh, I don't give a fuck. They deserve it. They deserve to get hurt. They want to hurt kids. They want to fucking hurt kids. They deserve to get hurt just as much.
It's like,
if not more.
My opinion is, now this is just my opinion, and I'm not encouraging anybody to do anything like that. But I think that Vlad the Impaler had some really good options for people that would do things like that. That or the term flaying. I like the term flaying. Mm-hmm. So but that's just me. That's movie, just me.
I just, every single time I hear that word flaying, I think of that clip, that one scene from the movie of the woman going around asking people to flay her because her sister or whatever took a spell and it was to make her young. You watched that movie. You were the one that showed me that movie. I have not. Lord, it's hard to tell what that was from. Anyway, they flayed her. They flayed her. And they showed her walking around without the skin.
Well, that's interesting. That's more than a frontal lobe injury.
It was a fairy tale movie, too. And you watched it and you made me watch it with you.
I didn't make you watch it.
You did.
Were you an adult age? Was you over to where you could watch like a rated R or something?
It wasn't rated R.
Right.
Actually, no, it was.
I have never allowed you to watch age inappropriate things. Going back, because you didn't take the ADHD
Either
medicine.
way, I watched it with you, and I'm like, oh God.
A frontal lobe brain injury can cause a huge change in a person's emotional control. And aggressive behavior is usually manifest. In some cases, lethargy, that means that they have no get up and go. Mm-hmm. Fatigue is experienced. Any damages on the frontal lobe can also impair complex movements. Now, this one hit close to my heart, such as preparing coffee. That would just be tragic.
Yeah.
The frontal lobe controls motor skills like eye and hand coordination, emotions, conscious thought, and even your personality. As a result of a brain injury, frontal lobe damage may impair your judgment, motivation, attention span, and organizational capacity. Because emotions are affected, the symptoms of frontal lobe damage can cause a person to become impulsive or to assume risky behaviors.
Like I said, that scene from Good Girls. Do you want to die? Kinda.
The frontal lobe is the largest part of the brain. It's also the last part to develop. Because of its location, it's prone to injuries. The front part of the frontal lobe is also known as the prefrontal cortex, and this is vital for the higher cognitive functions and personality determination. And that's why, you've got the teens and young adults trying to figure out who they are, what they are. And in today's world, you have all these external influences that are confusing the hell out of these kids. And that these kids are falling off the edge left and right. Now, the back part of the frontal lobe consists of the motor and premotor areas, and it's responsible for producing and modifying movement. MRI studies by Levin in 1990 indicated that the frontal lobe is the region that's most likely to experience mild to moderate injury. Of course, this, again, pertaining to physical injury. And a common characteristic of a frontal brain injury is difficulty to interpret feedback from the environment. So that means if you're talking to someone, or if someone's talking to you and you're becoming escalated, they're missing social cues.
Yeah.
There's also a dramatic change in a person's social behavior. Because, if somebody comes off as an ass and people don't want to have anything to do with them, and then they sit and they wonder why, because they don't have the ability to see how their behavior is affecting other people.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And symptoms of frontal lobe damage include movement which is the presence of tremors, dystonia, apraxia, gait disorder, and clumsiness. Emotional, difficulty controlling emotions, excitement, anger, and depression, including difficulty in understanding others' opinions. Oh my God. Behavioral, difficulty in utilizing and preservation of behavior, social inhibition, and in some cases, compulsive eating. Add that to lockdowns in our world today. Let's have some trauma with your trauma.
Yeah.
Language, presence of aphasia and excessive or expressive aphasia. And we were talking about aphasia is the partial or total loss of the ability to articulate ideas or comprehend spoken or written language. And in pathology, the impairment or abolition of the faculty of using and understanding written and spoken language, independently of any failure of the intellectual processes or any disease or paralysis of the vocal cords. In other words, these people are not intellectually deficit, but they're damaged. And also loss of the power of speech or of the appropriate use of words. Now, I have that from time to time, and it concerns me terribly.
Oh, I struggle with that all the time.
There are some studies where patients experience severe symptoms, but not all of them. And thus, researchers are still arguing about the term dysexecutive. And that was a syndrome that I skipped that. But anyhow, so it very well could be that these kids, like we have joked and wondered about, that grew up with the internet, that they very well could have structural brain changes, which it's not a matter of it just being a change. It is a matter of an injury. And that a lot of us that have wondered about this for a long time, that can help us be more empathetic, what we're dealing with, how to deal with it, to understand that some of these people do not know what they're doing. They can't help doing what they're doing. But now, as far as how to fix it, I'm not sure, other than to turn the damn things off every now and then.
Well, that can fix it, but, like, if you're saying is actually true, like, as far as, like, the damage to the frontal lobe and gray matter, there's no fixing that.
I don't know that there's not. Now, I'm one of these that there's conflicting research. Some of them, and I'd have to look out, there was a brain researcher named Carolyn Leaf, who is really good. And I need to research some of her work to see. I know that neural pathways can change. And some people think that they can't regrow, that the brain cells do not regrow. There's been more recent research. I would have to find you all some sources on that because I don't have them today, that actually it can regrow. And that even in areas of damage, that those neural pathways can reform. So it's not always a hard and fast, oh, you're just fucked. So that was a huge finding to me, and people may be going, what the hell, she's totally... Now, this is not conspiracy theory. Now, these people either knew what the hell that they were doing on releasing some of this stuff to the public, or maybe they didn't, just out of their ignorance, and this has been yet one more experiment of how can we screw up humanity.
Right.
You know, and maybe they're clicking their heels together in glee.
Yeah.
Because we know some of the other things, and that these people have recently been exposed as far as the manipulation of people's emotions, that they have been experimented on through these social media platforms without consent, without knowledge. And then we've got like the propaganda thing going out. So it is, my God, this is a spiritual attack and a physical attack, which people have known that we've been at war for quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think that we knew all the casualties of war.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, this is... And then we've got... This was the thread that I was mentally going down for the past couple of days. And when we have other... Yeah, But that's enough for one day because it's intense. But hopefully that will give people that are my age and older a little bit of an understanding of what is going on.
Right.
And prayer. Because it's one of those that those of us that thought these things were toys, but they sell Ouija boards as toys too, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
So, if you've had experiences with paranormal, supernatural, encounters with UFOs, aliens, cryptids, if you've got local, regional, family myths, legends, if this was an eye-opener for you, give us email, cupofcoffeewithscream@gmail.com. And yeah, these are some of the these are the strong brews. Yeah. So prayers for youngest kid with these headaches because, if this doesn't ease up, he's going to the clinic tomorrow, rain or no rain. I don't care what you want. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
If they end up sending me to a neurologist and they find something, I'll be damned if I am laid up in a hospital.
Well, it's
I don't even have the money to pay for those bills.
Honey, you don't have to worry about that. You don't. So, we'll see you all on the next cup. Thank you for taking the time to ponder great ponderings with us. Are you going to do your spiel?
Yes. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and most of all, subscribe. And click that little notification button of notifications of our daily uploads, because, we upload daily. Also, comment. Interact with us.
As long as it's positive.
I mean, you can, you can post negative shit if you want to. We're going to delete it, so...
Yeah. If you think about posting negative things, no, just waste, put your time someplace else.
Seriously, yeah.
Other than sitting there going, we will pray for you.
But so far, no, we haven't got any negative comments.
I appreciate that.
Pretty poggers, in my opinion.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gotten some over the years, but
You click the delete button and move on.
Yeah,
That's
you
what I do.
But anyhow, know that you're loved, and we'll see you on the next cup.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, shit. Brain trauma. Oh, shit.